City of Stevens Point Police and Fire Commission meeting, recorded, August 4, 2020.
I will call to order the August 4th regular meeting of the Stevens Point Police and Fire Commission. Leanne, would you be kind enough to call the roll, please?
Carlson?
I'm Ed here.
Kirschling?
Here.
Moore?
Here.
Ostrowski?
Here.
Westcott?
And I am here and present too. Thank you. Item 2, the approval of the minutes from July 8th. Commissioners, you have the minutes from our July 8th meeting, the meeting to discuss authorization to hire 2 police officers. You have the minutes in front of you. What are your wishes?
Move to approve.
Who said that?
That was Ron?
Second, please.
Ron did.
Kirschling, second. Thank you, Joseph. All right. Further discussion, comments on the minutes in front of you? If not, all in favor of approving the minutes as presented, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion carries. Thank you very much. Let's move now to the confirmation of the bills. Colleagues, you have had bills for fire, police, and ambulance. Let's go first to the ambulance billing, if we can. I'll give you a chance to catch up with me here. I did not see anything that caught my eye in the ambulance billing, and the year-to-date balance looks very healthy for the period ending June 30th. Now, the budget, as my colleagues have recognized, that's presented on the front is 6-month actual. The billing reflects through the end of July. Was there anything for ambulance that anyone wishes to bring up?
I was just wondering, on the uniform allowance, I see we used up 85% of the budget. Is that because of recent hires?
Yes.
All right, any other questions? Let's move to the fire department, and again, the same there. Let's take a look at the bills first through the end of July. Bob, would you just give us a quick reminder on the $4,000 software maintenance fees? It's self-explanatory, but what specific software is it just across the board, sir?
I'm looking, I gotta find the bill first, hold on one second.
Okay.
Which one are you talking about, sir?
Bob, I'm looking at the TriTech software systems for $4,043 software maintenance fee. It looks like something we certainly have seen and done before. I just wanted to double check. Is that?
Yeah, it's an annual fee for our software, yes.
Okay, one more time. I'm sorry, I cut you off.
It's an annual fee
Okay.
for our software. I don't mean to yell, but what the heck?
All right. Any questions from my colleagues on the fire budget or fire year-to-date?
I was just wondering on that DOC, what is DOC annual subscription? One for $1,970.
You guys must have a different thing than I got.
Bob, you're in the fire department one, Bob?
Yes, I am. About a third of the way down, fire department, 921 DOC's annual subscriptions and setup fees, $1,970 for the month.
All right, that's a new software system we went to for writing fire investigation reports.
Okay.
921 is the standard that we have to do all investigation reports, and this helps us get our reports into a legal format.
Okay, I was just wondering, I was curious what it was because I didn't understand what DOC was.
No, it's,
All right, are there any questions on the bills from the fire department? Or again, the 6-month snapshot for the budget, again at 41.7 for 6 months. They're in good shape too. If there are no other questions on fire for Chief Finn, let's move to the billing for the police department, same billing cycle through the end of July. The only thing, Chief Center, have they finished creating that new access control systems in the south wing that you had reported to us?
Yes, they have. I'm not seeing that they have billed us. Yes, they have on 7/17. Permar has a bill.
All right. Any questions on police billing for Chief Center?
I have one question for Chief Zinner on gas and electric, 5,800, is that 1 month, or is that a couple of months back there?
The treasurer's office is the one that does that, Bill.
Yeah, that comes out of, Bob, that comes out of the treasurer's office. I have not seen that bill, so it gets listed under us, but they're the ones that paid that.
We don't,
That seems pretty high, obviously.
For several months, I hope that's several.
it's probably quarterly, I'm guessing.
Talking to Leanne, she assumes that's quarterly, but I can follow up on that and kick you an email.
Yeah, Chief Senator, would you do, my recollection is that those are quarterly bills that are assigned to the budgets, but it would be good to confirm Commissioner Ostrowski's question if he could do that, but I would concur. I believe that's a quarterly billing. Are there other questions from the Police and Fire Commission on the bills from the Police Department? If not, I will move approval of bills as submitted to the Commission for police, fire, and ambulance. Is there a second, please?
I would second all that.
Second by Commissioner Ostrowski. Further discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you, colleagues. Let me clear the deck here. All right, next item on the agenda is the COVID-19 update from Chief Finn and Chief Center. This is a monthly update, an important, critical update on our monthly regular meetings. As the nation has passed the grim milestone of 150,000 Americans who have died from this virus, I think it's always important that we update what steps, procedures are being in place at fire, EMS, and police to protect the public that we serve. Chief Finn, I'll stop talking and look forward to you beginning the update, sir.
I'd slide over just so it doesn't get disconnected.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, go ahead, Bob.
Okay, on the fire department side, first thing, the city had Marshfield Clinic, a nurse manager come in and check all the facilities. I'll let Chief Center talk about his facility, but I know the police and fire got thumbs up from Marshfield Clinic. CDC came out with new guidelines for fire and EMS, especially if people living in a firehouse for full-time apartments. Came out about 10 days ago, I would say, maybe 2 weeks. We now have to wear, before the governor's order for face masks, we were wearing, we have to wear surgical masks. The cloth masks are not good enough for us in the firehouse. We have to have them on anytime that we're in the building, unless we're in our office by ourselves, we could take them off, or eating or sleeping, they could take them off for. So we complied. We also have to take a survey on our lab tech, which is our manpower for every day. 2 questions, a survey if you have a fever of 100.7 or if you're feeling sick. If you answer yes to either one of them, you cannot come in the building and you have to go see a doctor. We take surveys, them same questions are asked of any employee or any visitor coming in to the firehouse also. We get our orders for our mask and our gowns and everything through the state. They have a state stockpile. Also, we get 4 different suppliers that we get various supplies from. Right now, we're good on the N95 mask, and then we do have some on back order. Under the CARES Act from the state of Wisconsin, which provides funding to the city to bring buildings up to that for COVID-19 expenses, we are working with IT to get 5 laptop computers in case anyone has to work from home. They will have the ability to work from home. We also looked at trying to remodel the bunk room to make an individual quarters at Station 1 like Station 2, but that got a little pricey because we were changing, I occupancy and a whole bunch of stuff where we would add a sprinkler to building, it just wasn't feasible. But we are still looking at 2 waterless water fountains, electric soap dispensers, and electric paper towel holders. We're going through the CARES Act to get all of them at Station 1 and Station 2. We also have on order 2 electrostatic disinfectant sprayers. One's a bigger size, it's a fogger for the stations and a smaller one for the ambulances. This fog, supposedly the electric static in the air breaks down the molecules of COVID-19 is my understanding. We also have UV lights ordered for the ambulances, one that we can put in the ambulance, and ultraviolet lights will kill anything in the back of the ambulance. We rotate it. They're speccing a new ambulance, and there's talk of putting that in the spec for the new ambulances. We got all new mattress pads for the beds, because each crew share the beds. Now they can disinfect the mattress pads every morning before they the next guy goes to bed in the evening. And the one thing that is going to affect the budget is we have one member of the National Guard who is pretty high up in the National Guard. I think he's like organizing most of these drive-through test sites. He started in March. His orders are at the end of August. The rumor is they're going to the president extended orders today, and that he's going to be probably extended through the rest of the year, or we'll be short. Other than that, that's where we're at with COVID-19.
Bob, would you spend a minute before we go to Chief Zenner, and in general terms, would you share with the community that we serve some of the steps that have been taken behind the scenes to prepare if additional urgent or emergency steps are required for staffing, or additional firefighter paramedics, or an alteration in the platoon assignment because of a potential illness, which we do not have right now, and we need to stress that. But you and your team, and working with the commission, have taken a lot of steps, and working with Chief Zenner to prepare for what I believe is almost any eventuality.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I forgot to put that on the list. We have contingency plans for manpower, to go to 2 shifts, to put different people in different areas. It allowed me to bring some of the firefighters to a management team, like the police department had an MOU with. And then we found out that all our contingency plans were based on the state of emergency order by the governor and then by the mayor, which expired. So then we worked with the Police and Fire Commission through the city attorney, and the Police and Fire Commission attorney says, if we need this, how do we go about doing it? Who declares the state of emergency for the fire department, or in this may be the case of the police department? And it was determined that the Police and Fire Commission, because of optional power 6213, that they would have to declare a state of emergency. So we have in place a draft order from the Police and Fire Commission, a state of emergency. The legal ramifications are that they can call an emergency meeting. They have to give a 2-hour public notice. So if anything happens, we can enact our contingency plans within 6 hours. Maybe on a weekend, we might have to wait till a Monday. I'm not sure about the legal, having a posted meeting on a Sunday. I don't know about that, but everything is in pre-draft form, so if needed, we can act real quick and keep the fire and police departments running.
Thank you, Chief. I think it's a good demonstration, good example of the tremendous behind-the-scenes planning, analysis, and work that you and your team are doing, working with the commission and working with Chief Zenner and his team. So, again, thank you for sharing that. If you're ready, Robert, were you done? Can we move to Chief Zenner?
Yeah, I'm done unless there's any questions, sir.
All right, we'll come back with questions, I think. Does Chief Zenner, you want to fill us in on behind the scenes and in front of the scenes for police, please?
Sure. As Chief Finn talked about, we did have Marshfield Clinic conduct an assessment of the police department. Assistant Chief Mike Rotier assisted with that. We received exceptional marks with the current protocols that we have established. So good reports from Marshfield Clinic. Currently, we're in the process of purchasing 60 masks for a more permanent setup other than the surgical masks we're currently using, and that will be for all sworn and non-sworn personnel at the police department. We also, working with IT under the grant, looking to get 10 laptops for all administrative positions and management staff in the event we need to work remotely. Our Investigations Bureau, as I had in my chief's report, has came back to working a day shift rotation. Obviously, we're still maintaining social distancing in that work environment. Patrol, we continue to work a modified schedule to limit the potential contamination from one shift to the other. Other than that, we have continued as we have in the past. Lieutenant Jeremy Mueller remains as the department point of contact for all COVID-19 related communication, and that's also for FEMA data collection. One thing, Interim Assistant Chief Cousseau just put out an order that on all traffic stops, patrol officers need to be wearing a mask, as well as obviously following the emergency order in closed spaces. All patrol personnel, if they're walking into a building, obviously needs to have a mask on. Hence, that's the reason why we've gone to making that purchase.
Good, good. I'm sorry, were you done? I don't want
I'm done, yes.
Go ahead, Commissioner Carlson.
Chief Center, what is a modified patrol schedule? What does that mean?
What we have done is normally we've worked a rotation of 6A to 6P or 6P to 6A. What we have done is created a half-hour break. Ultimately, instead of all entering into the patrol shift briefing room, we have the outgoing shift remain in the reports room, the incoming shift report to the patrol room, and we have personnel that are leaving that half hour earlier, other than the shift supervisor to remain and brief the incoming shift.
Okay, thank you.
Are there other questions for Chief Zenner or Chief Finn?
I have one question. The thought came across my mind. Does a whole shift get shut down if one man on the shift comes down with it, or is it the individual? And how do we replace this manpower? Is the National Guard available or something like that if we ran into several people?
I'm going to let Chief Finn has just moved towards the phone, and I'm going to let him answer this because he's living that dream right now.
If one person gets it, my understanding is the Department of Public Health will do contact tracing, and then they inform who has to be quarantined and who has to get tested. That's what, for the fire department, and I believe the police department, the contingency plans are for, that with the state of emergency, it gives us the authority as chiefs to operate under a state of emergency to make sure that we can operate safely and efficiently. But the health department's the one that determines if someone gets it, and then through contact tracing, who has to quarantine.
Okay, what about auxiliary manpower? There is none, is there?
We have an auxiliary unit, but they would not be used in the event of a manpower issue. There's also been conversations in the past too of potentially an auxiliary unit of retired officers if it ever got to that point. But obviously that's why we got the basically the modified schedule. Hopefully we never see that point, but there's certainly options that are out there. And also to add on with, I'm in constant communication with the sheriff, and if both the entities, and including Plover and UWSP has officers, and we got contingencies, that gives us a little extra benefit obviously than the fire department, but we have those resources that we can lean on.
Okay, thank you.
The fire department also has mutual aid agreements with Marshfield and Wisconsin Rapids that we will send manpower to them and they will send manpower to us if and when our contingency plans are fully extended and we need help. That was set up back in the beginning of this March and April. Thank God we haven't had to use them yet. But we have contingency plans on contingency plans on contingency plans. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. Thank you very kindly.
Actually, I can confirm that Bob has contingency plans on contingency plans on contingency. And I'm proud of both of you. You work very hard, and part of what we talked about before is some of the planning that has taken place behind the scenes that would involve the commission having to activate certain steps if needed. So both of you are to be commended, and your teams are too. I don't want to labor this too much longer, but would one of you give us about 60 seconds? You've both referenced Marshfield Clinic review of process procedures. What do they look at? What do they test? And I'm sure it's uniform for both stations, but I'm a little more interested in what do they look for and what do they test?
I was wondering what that beep was coming in, but it's
It's a
actually
phone
an
call.
outside.
As far as I know, I wasn't there, but the city had Marshfield Clinic come and go through every city facility. They looked at your policies and procedures, they looked at how you were sanitizing, how you were allowing visitors in, and then they would make recommendations to the city on how to make it safer for the public and for the employees. As I said earlier, the initial report is that the police department and both fire stations come back with flying colors, that they're very happy with the protocols that we have in place now and what we're planning on doing in the future with some of the CARES Act money.
Good, thank you. Are there other questions for either of the chiefs?
Yeah, I have a question. So have all employees of both departments been tested?
No.
No.
Oh, okay, all right, that's what I was just wondering.
Are there other questions on this agenda item? If not, there really is no need. It's an update. Thank you, Chief Finn, Chief Center. With the permission of the commission, let's move to item 5, the capital budget presentation for 2021 for the fire and police departments. Commissioners, you have the capital proposals from both units provided to you. Let's start first with the fire. Chief Finn, since I think you were still close to the telephone, were there specific instructions from the mayor or comptroller's office, and Chief Center, you can certainly chime in here too, regarding the assembly for 2021 capital proposals? Were there guidelines issued from City Hall, or what was the process they're following this year, gentlemen?
Comptroller Laddick sent out an email and with the process, and it's the same process it's been in years past. Myself and Chief Center did talk because they were supposed to be in like 10 days ago, and we did talk to Comptroller Laddick and saying that we would like to present our capital before the Police and Fire Commission so you could approve it, and then we can submit it, because ultimately we report to you, and he agreed. So my capital, I don't believe Chief Center's capital's been turned in yet.
No.
They'll be turned in tomorrow if you guys approve our capital, or if in years past you've made adjustments to our capital. So that's the process that I've been going for so far this year.
All right, Bob, you want to kick it off? Let's take us through. I have the spreadsheet in front of me for 21-25 capital. I assume the column you really want us to look at is the budget requests versus budget projected, or how would you like to proceed?
All right, yeah, the budget requests are in red. The one thing I'd like to point out that they want us to prioritize, and if you're gonna see in your spreadsheet, like turnout gear, boots, helmets is an NA, general fire equipment an NA, lapel mics is an NA, and tactical rescue are an NA. Them 4 items are reoccurring every year. They're put into the capital budget. So I don't prioritize them. I don't feel I should have to prioritize them because they're a reoccurring issue. That's the way the city works it, and that's fine by me. It's got to do with levy limits and stuff. So that wasn't prioritized. The big money that we went for was the training site. Last year, we put money in that was cut out. During the budget hearings with the mayor and the comptroller, they assured me that they would take a hard look at it this year. And Chief Moody has it broke down exactly where the training site money's gonna go. So I'm gonna have him come up and he can explain the training site a little better than I can. Wanna come up?
And I'm showing a request there for $100,000. Is that accurate?
Yes, it is. Chief Moody's gonna come up and he has it broke down where we get the 100,000 from. In case the city says we can only afford 60,000, then we get to pick and choose what we want. We broke it down, the expenditure.
Okay.
So that is correct, we're asking for $100,000 next year at our training site. $50,000 is gonna be just to actually fully rock the training site for the parking lot and to be able to put our apparatuses up on the training site to be able to pump water so we don't get any, with the flooding of the training site, any washout. We realized that we had to go with 6 to 8 inches of rock, so it's gonna be $50,000 for that part. Then we've got $15,000 in concrete pads for our roof ventilation props, our splash pad for vehicle extrication, and for our burn cells. Then we have an additional $20,000 that we would have from that $100,000 put towards a Conex box building. Basically, at the cost of $3,000 a Conex box, we would ask for 5 of them, and then we would actually stack them on top of each other, designing a 3-story building. DPW has agreed to assist us with cutting in windows and doors and being able to do rappelling and other objectives off of the top of that as well. And then the last section of money, which would be about $15,000, would be just in construction materials to be able to build different props out on the site. So that's where we would get the $100,000 from.
Chief, what is the projected timeline to operationalize the training facility?
If we were to actually get the funds, the first step would be actually to put the rock down. That would be accomplished as soon as the frost was out next spring and the vehicle weight limits were off. We'd get that established. Then working with DPW, we would pour the concrete pads and then we would start building from there. If we had to go on the whole $100,000, I would guess by this time next year, we would be pretty close to wrapping up what we're requesting for.
Do we have a site picked out for this?
We do have a training site. It is 3100 Whiting Avenue. It's the city pits. Initially, when we started at this training site, we worked with different departments within the city, and we've been able to secure, initially, it was a little less than an acre, and now through the process of the last 18 months, we've been able to secure a little over 3+ acres of that site. We've already been able to bring it up to grade with city street sweepings. We've been able to clear the land with all of the vegetation, and we've been able to drop power in on a pedestal that we worked with Bushman, and then Water Department has already got hydrants into the location as well to start our training.
Thank you.
Now, multiple departments would be able to train there, correct, Chief?
Correct. Multiple departments would be able to train there, and it would allow our department during the day when we have scheduled training to be able to be able to go down there in district and be able to respond with no delays to their response while they're training.
Training solution and mid-state.
So they could be dispatched.
Also with that, we are working with other departments right now. Mid-State Technical College is looking at wanting to start a fire training site somewhere in this location. They have one in the Marshfield area, they have one on the Rapids campus, but they'd like to get one more in this area. So they've reached out to us and they would like to partner with us. Also, DCI, Department of Criminal Investigation, is working with us, and they're planning on hosting the Wisconsin's first ever certified investigation course this October, fire investigation course this October out at the site. And they've already got a Conex box on site and filling it up with their materials as well, so we can do burn cells and run the actual course this fall.
Training solution.
Oh, training, you mean Target Solutions?
Target solution.
Okay, Target Solutions also, we're trying to get fiber out there, and what we're trying to do is create a online video programming. We've got Target Solutions up and running as well right now, which is basically a program that allows us to do EMS and fire training virtually or throughout the 3 crews consistently. And with the training site, we're going to be able to provide better, consistent, effective training amongst the 3 crews and have better operational success on the fire scenes as well.
Well, I think it is probably pretty obvious what an enhanced training facility offers, but Chief Moody, if you or Chief Finn would maybe spend 60 seconds on what this would mean for the advanced training of not only our department but others, and other ancillary benefits that maybe we haven't identified that would warrant approval of this.
It is our belief that, and we're going to talk about it later in the agenda, the position of the training officer in this Target Solution, which allows us to go out and 1 crew videotape on how to force open a door. And then we can download it in the Target Solution, and they can watch it out of the Target Solution library at the firehouse. If ISO came in, we were a point and a half away from being a 1. Our biggest deficiency was training hours and fire prevention. Now that the fire marshal's up and running and getting the inspection program up, if we get the training site and with the training officer within a year and get our training records up to date, we call ISO, and it's firmly believed that we would become an ISO 1. And I believe there's 214 ISO 1 fire departments in the country.
And as we have discussed so many times, colleagues, an ISO 1 for this community would have strong benefits for every homeowner, property owner, business owner in this community. I'm supportive of this capital request. Commissioners, do you have questions for Chief Moody on it? Bob, you want to talk about the $50,000 for paging? Wasn't that in this year's budget and that got struck too?
No, the $50,000 for paging is and what we didn't put in there was, because we don't know the cost, and it's more of a police department issue, is when the county goes to their new CAD system. The $50,000 is if the county gets it up and running this year, that's to integrate the G2 paging system that we had installed. That's what it's going to cost with the new CAD system. We didn't put it in, hook it up to the old CAD because they would have just had to take it out. So that, if the county doesn't have the new CAD system up and running in 2021, that'll be carried over to 2022. But we had to put it in there, so we have to integrate our paging system with the new CAD system.
All right, thank you. What else would you like to tell the commission about the capital improvement request from the fire department, sir?
The epoxy truck floor bay, that is a safety issue. We've had it in years past, and it gets cut. I've been here over 13 years, and that floor has never been done. They come in, they put epoxy paint and then some sand or non-slip material in there for safety reasons. The compressors and reels, just because the cost, we don't have that much money in the operating budget. That usually gets cut every year. The one thing, the DNR grant match, we put that in there because we wrote for a grant with the DNR, and it's a 50-50 split. So that money, that $7,000 would come out of that. And then the extinguisher prop is kind of interesting because we had more money come in from our 2%, which the state gives the city for fire inspections. The money can only be used on certain things, fire education being one of them. So I had a discussion with Comptroller Treasurer Laddick that the increase in that was just about $7,500 to $8,000. If that money went into the fire education fund, then we could reduce this capital by half and put that in general fire equipment and then pay for it that way. And then that money, the extra money budgeted would be always in the fire education fund that we can go out and train the community in fire education and stuff. And help us get our training props for roof props and door props at the training site. And that money would be in the operational budget.
Good. It looks good to me. I'm quite supportive of the material that I see in front of me. I see that, there's clearly been a lot of work that went into it. Are there questions on the fire capital?
I'd like to bring up one more thing, if I could, please.
Oh, absolutely, Chief.
If
I'm
you
sorry,
look
go
at,
ahead.
if you look at 2023,
Yeah,
that's a drop dead date for us of $500,000 because our SCBA bottles will be expired. I just wanted to bring that attention to the commission that, and I'll bring it up with the comptroller and the mayor, in 2023, we need $500,000 for SCBA bottles. Now, obviously, we'll write a grant and try, but if we don't get it, that's drop dead, that we need new bottles by January 1st, 2024.
And that would be a priority number one, I would think, correct?
That would be like 1AAA.
All right, okay.
But if we don't have current masks, we can't go in a burning building. So, I mean, it's pretty simple like that. The NFPA standards are pretty strict on this. And so we debated, should we put it in 2022? And we said, no, if we get it in 2023, we can prepare the bids and everything in 2022. We could do the research, buy them in 2023, and we would have them up and operating by January 1st of 2024. Right?
how many bottles are we talking about, Chief?
Holy,
Quite a few.
there's 50 or 60?
50 or 60 bottles and another probably 30 packs.
Yeah, 50 or 60 bottles and 30 packs.
I'm going to conclude that since you and your team have put it all into 2023, there is not an opportunity to phase, like over 2 years to do this, split it in half?
No.
Okay, well.
I don't know, the chief of operations in the back shaking his head no, so I'm going on him.
I mean, I guess if we did it over the New Year part,
Yeah, I
December
get-
part,
yeah.
January, I mean, we could figure something out, but implementing it in 2 different calendar years or 12 months apart,
Yeah,
things change too quickly.
Chief Moody's saying if we got it in 2022 and got half of them in December and then the other half in January, because they could be different style packs, they gotta be compatible, you have to train on them. So we couldn't go with 30 bottles and 15 packs in April and then wait till the following year. That's just not feasible.
No, I understand. Thank you for addressing that. Are there other comments that you wish to share with the commission on your capital budget request, Chief?
No.
All right. Are there questions from the commission for Chief Finn? Okay, Chief Zetter, you're up with your first capital budget request.
All right, thank you. I did not send it out in color, I believe, so I'd be focusing on the prioritized line initially. Probably the biggest thing I want to talk about was the office records management system. And Chief Finn alluded to that. That would be our records management system that we'll be upgrading. I have it, an asterisk on it. I am bumping that out to 2022. This is basically for public safety, Portage County wide, and that 500,000 would be our cut. Now, just understand what that system would entail. That's our CAD system, our field-based reporting, our database, our evidence. Literally, it's all of your online and communication within public safety. So it's a significant item. With conversations with the county, even though that was supposed to go online in 2021, it looks like that there's still a remote potential that would be finished before 21 is out, but it looks more like it will be an expense for 2022. And again, that's, there's really no room for pushing that out. As Chief Finn talked about priority 1 AAA, that would be our line item that we would need, or we would not be able to communicate with our communication center. But at this point, we did bump that out to 2022. and with communication with the sheriff's office, we shouldn't have a problem there. There was a couple line items that I deleted. Carpet cleaning equipment and a snow blower, communicating with the comptroller. We have money left over in an encumbered line on building, remodeling, that he was in agreement that that would be an expense out of that line, which therefore we could delete that line item and just take it off the list for future replacement. There was one other line that I have identified as an IT line with Ed Eggleston's retirement. That line item are essentially, we no longer have IT within the police department. That is its own entity. I have had communications with Alex Van Driel on that. There was some money that had been encumbered under that same issue, computer hardware CJIS related, and that $40,000, although CJIS related issues are within the police department, it's actually a citywide cost because it's an upgrade. So I am leaving that to him to decide what his priority would be. Ultimately, what it leaves us to is I have two prioritized categories. The first one, our handguns are up for renewal. Normally, we're on a 5-year rotation. This would be 2021 would be at 8 years since we replaced it. We have bought a kit. It's an upgrade kit that basically takes care of springs within, but that was obviously at the 5-year mark. So again, we're at the 8-year mark on that, and that's what that would include would be moving to a 9mm handgun and all the holsters and magazines that would be required to go with it. The second priority we would have is gas masks. Currently, we have gas masks, I don't know, they're the same gas masks since I started, and that's 26 years ago. We have since bought some filters, but I believe that those are well outside of expiration, and they no longer make those filters. They don't make the gas masks that we currently have. We still issue those masks to every officer. We will be downgrading, due to the costs, we'll be downgrading to just our SWAT team carrying those, and that would come at a cost of $20,000 for 13. And we have that registered in as a priority of 2. And that would complete what we are requesting. Is there any questions?
All right, so I'm showing 2 active requests for 21 totaling $55,000. Is that correct?
Correct.
All right, now I want to return just, if I can, briefly before we open it up for questions to the records management $500,000 chief Center placed this item in front of us so that it was time to really basically alert the Common Council and the Police and Fire Commission that this large conversion is scheduled to take place. So thank you for doing that, Tom. And that's just, again, our portion by the city. Does that cover both police and fire, or is that just the police?
That is just police, and I was instructed that we should not obviously see an increase in that. We will be good.
Okay.
And Chief Finn had something he was
At
going to
the last meeting that we had, the county was unable to give the fire department a cost, because it's gonna be split between the county for the ambulances and then obviously for the fire equipment. But I'm thinking if the police department's 500,000, we're gonna be up to about 300,000. So you're talking for public safety, for police and fire, anywhere from $750,000 to $1 million next year when they upgrade this system. And I don't know how the costs are gonna be split or shared.
Yeah, I think it's time to give everybody a big heads up on that. Now, sharing in this cost would be included, county sheriff, Plover Police, all volunteer fire departments? How far out are they spreading this? Do either one of you know?
I know, at least on the police side, this would include, obviously, us, the sheriff's office, Plover, UWSP is in communication with this. I'm not sure on the fire. And then also just to talk about the cost, I know this is still out for bid. So our actual cost, $500,000 is a benchmark. What that actually is going to come in is obviously not known yet at this point.
Can you address the fire aspects? Will like the volunteer departments, hall?
I have no idea how it's going to be split out. I don't think they could charge the volunteer fire departments, because I think by statute, they have to page out the volunteer fire departments. And we are the only fire department in the county that uses CAD. I know Plover said that they're not gonna go to a CAD system. So that would be on us, but as far as any other costs, as far as paging and stuff, I think by statute, the county has to page out the volunteers. I don't know if they can charge for that.
Okay. Let me pause. Questions for Chief Zenner from the Police and Fire Commission, please?
I have one, Chief Zenner, on the firearms. How many firearms is that for that 35,000?
That would be 50, I believe, was the count that we would be looking at.
Basically, every officer plus a backup.
Yes.
Thank you.
Chief Zenner?
Yes.
Are you currently using 40 caliber now?
Yes, we are, and as other entities in law enforcement, lower cost, we would be going with the 9mm.
Funny how things come back into vogue.
That is true.
Yep. Thank you.
Yep.
Commissioner Moore, Commissioner Kirschling?
Kirschling's good.
Commissioner Moore?
Yeah, I'm fine.
Okay, thank you, Jerry. All right, if we have no other questions for either chief,
Harry, one last question for Chief Zenner.
Yeah, go ahead, Bob.
You mentioned 13 gas masks. If you wanted to do your whole department, what roughly do you think that bill would be?
Well, you're looking at about $1,300 a mask, anywhere from 13 to 15.
Okay, thank you very much.
It would be a very expensive. Now, I guess when you're looking at the cost and the fact, obviously, I've never used a mask in my career. I could definitely see a need with our SWAT team, but that would be an extensive cost to sit in a locker for every officer.
Okay, thank you, Tom. I guess my only comment on that one is I've been hearing this gas mask thing every year since I've been on the commission, and I think sooner or later we've got to bite the bullet on them.
Right. I agree.
Are there other questions or comments for either of the chiefs? If not, I'll entertain a motion we can do it in one motion, approve the capital improvement requests that were submitted to the Police and Fire Commission and send them along with our blessing to the Comptroller's Office for inclusion in the budget deliberations for 2021.
I would move we send both of them forward with an approval.
Kirschling, second.
Commissioner Kirschling with a second. I'm going to have Leanne call the roll on this since it is a monetary item. You are voting to approve.
Carlson?
Yes.
Kirschling?
Yes.
Moore? Moore? Ostrowski? And Westcott?
Yes. All right, thank you for the budget presentations on capital, chiefs. Let's move now to update on the training officer in the fire department. As commissioners remember, it's something we have discussed on several occasions and approved the creation of a fire training officer. As my colleagues are aware, that request went in front of the appropriate city committee or committees and common council. And Chief Finn, I'll let you pick up the story there.
The city council approved the position. The day after they approved it, we put out the job description and the procedures. The procedures right now are a letter of intent and resume to Assistant Chief Moody by August the 10th. They will be given on that day a random topic for presentation. We're going to have the old-fashioned way, 3 topics for EMS, 3 topics for fire, and that they're going to have to put a 20-minute presentation together to be presented August 26th before a panel. On August 26th, they have interviews with myself, and then my management team, which includes 2 assistant chiefs and Fire Marshal Egan. After that, I will meet with the management team. I'm hoping to name the training officer on August 27th or 28th. We have the position starting on September the 8th. The one thing we did notice after Chief Moody put out the requirements in the job descriptions, that it came to our attention that some of our members did not meet the minimum requirements because of classes that were canceled due to COVID-19. We made the decision that anybody that did not meet the requirements because they couldn't take a class due to COVID-19, and most of these are ICS classes that they can take if they get the position, that they should not be penalized for not being able to take a class due to COVID-19.
All right, you want to talk just briefly about the role of a training officer? We had one for many years, but that, as our commission is aware of, has been a position that's been vacant for a while too.
I could tell you when it was vacated. Hold on. It was, we had one from 1980 to 2008. And then during the restructure of 2010, it was just reclassified that position. As Chief Moody alluded to earlier, we found in this year's budget some stuff that we had in last year's capital that we were able to put into this year's budget, which is Target Solution, a training program, and Lexipol, which is a policy-making, helps write policy. The training officer is going to be in charge of entering the material in the Target Solution. I believe we have 9 instructors. How many instructors we got?
15.
All right, we have 15 instructors. He will be in charge of the 15 instructors. And as we talked about getting a training site, this Target Solution, it's limitless. Last year's capital, it gave us the improvement into our training room this year, which is occurring right now, where we have a whiteboard where you can, this is college classroom stuff that we're going to be able to do. Now we're going to have someone that's going to organize all of this.
Good. Well,
It's going to be impressive. I'm telling you, it's going to be impressive.
And we are looking forward to returning to a level of training that existed for many years in the department. And the commission also acknowledges and thanks the administration and the Common Council for concurring with our recommendation to support the creation of this. So thank you. Are there questions for Chief Finn? Otherwise, I can move on.
I have one quick one, and that is, Chief, the training officer, would he become part of management, or would he still be considered in with the rank and file?
No, he would not be a union member. He'd come out of the union and go into the city pay plan and be part of the management team.
And he would be doing training only?
Yes, sir. He will take a safety officer class when they start offering them again. And then he will do training only, but on any working structure fire or technical rescue, he will be the safety officer on that scene and report to the incident commander.
Okay.
Good, thank you. Other questions? Bob, thank you for the update. I don't think there's any action required by the commission on that. Let's move to item 7, the approval of memorandum of understanding with the firefighters regarding the bonus sick leave accrual. Chief Finn?
Okay, back in March, the city extended bonus sick leave, like a reprieve from, if you called in sick, you still got your bonus sick days. The local came to me and liked to get it in writing because the bonus sick day is part of their contract. The Police and Fire Commission approved one that ended June 30th. This is the same exact language as was approved back in March or April to extend this benefit to all union members per the contract to the end of this year.
I support the memorandum of understanding, and the motion we would be looking for after we've satisfied your questions, commissioners, is authorization for the president of the Police and Fire Commission to execute the MOU as presented to you.
I would so move that we move forward with it.
Is there a second?
I second it.
Second by Commissioner Carlson. Are there questions on the MOU or the extension? If not, you're voting to approve. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Opposed say no. Motion carries. Thank you. Item 8 is the approval of the fire department eligibility list, a list you have in front of you, colleagues. Bob, what do you want us to know here?
First of all, I want to commend the management team of the fire department in getting this list together. Due to COVID-19, we usually went through Chippewa Valley Technical College. They just put out a memo that I believe they're going to start testing and getting us names in September or October. We interviewed people that applied for us. We worked with different facilities to get the tests that were needed for state approval. And it was painstakingly hard to get. We did something that most fire departments couldn't do, is to get lists and hire people. So this list is before you to get approved. There's 3 names on there for approval, and once it's approved, we'll give a conditional offer of employment right away, and the other 2 will be hired as soon as they're missing one thing, and they're both testing within the next 2 weeks. And we would hire this whole list. If everyone's qualified and pass everything, we'll hire all these 3 people within the next 6 weeks.
All right, well, the first order of business for the commission is the formal approval of the fire department eligibility list, a function you are all familiar with. So I will move approval of the fire department eligibility list dated July 19th from the fire chief. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Moore. Are there questions? If
Bob,
not,
with the addition of these 3, will that bring us to full power?
No,
Okay. How many would we still be needing them?
we'll still be needing an additional employee, and what we're doing is looking at right now is once we exhaust this list, we're looking at running our own tests again in the fall.
Okay.
other questions? If not, this vote is to approve the eligibility list as it is submitted. All in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
We'll say no. Motion 9 dovetails with agenda item 8, the authorization to hire 1 firefighter paramedic from the eligibility list. Chief Finn?
We are down 3 or 4 as of right now, so I'm looking at authorization to hire 1 from this eligibility list right now. Probably should have said hire as needed, because if the other 2 pass the test that they need to pass, I would like to offer them conditional offers of employment, because we do need them, and it might be before the next Police and Fire Commission. Hopefully they could take these tests within the next 2 weeks. Again, COVID-19 has reduced the availability for some of these people to take these tests. So I would say, if I could change it to authorization to hire firefighter, paramedic from eligibility list as needed.
Well, technically, we can't be changing the agenda, although I think it's a minor editorial change. I think the commission, through its motion to authorize the hiring of 1 firefighter paramedic from the eligibility list, include in that motion some discretion for you to begin the appropriate testing, background protocols, and then base it upon the commission would act very similar to what we did during the first height of this COVID, to basically formalize the process, but give you instructions to, basically move it along behind the scenes. That's kind of a quick generalization of it.
No, that would be great, because if I can do the background check and all the testing and stuff,
Right.
they would be eligible to be hired by the next PFC meeting then, yes.
Which one are you looking at here, John?
Yes, John's the first one to be hired.
Okay, that's what I thought. Questions for Chief Finn on the hiring of John? All right, I will move. We have approved the eligibility list. I'm going to authorize the hiring of one firefighter paramedic is identified to the commission, and of course that's dependent upon the satisfactory completion of all of the hiring protocols that are required by the fire department and police and fire commission, and to basically authorize the chief to, as a need be, between now and the September meeting, if it is necessary, to begin the background protocols on additional firefighters pending final approval from the commission, which should take place in September. A lot in that motion, but is there a second?
Second by Kirschling.
Thank you, Joseph. Are there questions?
Is there a priority on the other two, one over the other?
My guess is it looks like it goes Jennifer and then Michael. Is that correct, Chief?
No, they are listed in alphabetical order.
Oh, all right.
Because they're doing it that way, 6213 allows me to, if one completes, they're both like tied, so whoever gets completed first is gonna be hired.
Okay.
Okay.
Other questions? Good question.
In other words, equally qualified, it's just a matter of who's ready.
Who's ready first? Yes.
Thank you.
Are there other questions? All in favor of the motion, please say aye. Aye. I'm hearing one aye. Rest of the commissioners, you all on board with this?
Aye.
Okay. All right, I'm going to say the motion passes. Let's pass over number 10, and we'll come back to that when legal counsel joins us. Let's move to the fire chief's report, EMS report. Bob, we have the report in front of us from Assistant Chief Moody. What do you want us to know about it, Eddie?
Hello, D. Dietrich joins.
Okay, Dean, we're just a couple more minutes, and then we'll be ready for you.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Bob, on the fire chief EMS report.
Do you have July's and June and July's, or just June's?
I
believe
I'm just looking at July.
Okay. No, the report, I pretty much talked out everything, so the report pretty much speaks for itself. If you have any questions, sorry. Is there anything you want to point out, Chief?
The only thing that I wanted to point out on July's is just that we did an interdivisional MAVIS response to Marathon County. Within Division 110, which is Portage County, we respond normally to assist other departments, and that's not that far out of the ordinary to assist other departments within the county. But to go interdivisionally and go to Marathon County to assist with a structure fire is not a norm, and that did happen last month where we were requested to go to Knowlton to assist with 9 other fire departments in the suppression of a structure fire.
As Chief Finn, as I'm looking at the report for the month of July under the fire inspections report, who compiles that report, Chief?
Fire Marshal complies it.
Okay, so the fire marshal is the one that's putting in the general fire inspections, liquor license inspections, so on. That whole category is Drew's handling that, is that correct?
Drew is seeing this and doing most of the inspection. We're still having the company officers go out and do, I believe, each company officer has to do 10 a month. Okay, and we are working with the businesses doing because of COVID-19, there's certain procedures that they have to do before the mask order went out by the governor, and how to do it safely. But each company officer does 10 inspections a month, and then Drew does every other one. But the fire marshal does all the liquor license inspections, that I do know.
All right, as my colleagues know, part of the fire marshal's responsibility, and please correct me if I have this wrong, is the fire marshal working with you and others on your team also reviews plans, proposed plans for development in the community. Is that correct?
That's correct. We make comments to community development or the plan commission, and Drew, the fire marshal, I should say not Drew, the fire marshal goes over the plans and makes comments and makes recommendations per the code and what has to be done before development can start.
One thing I'd like you and your team to consider is somewhere, and I'm going to leave it up to your discretion, maybe it goes under the category fire inspections. I'm not sure I'm convinced of that, but I would like to see some indication in future reports as to the number of planned or proposed developments that the fire marshal has been asked for input in working with your team, if it's 2 projects a month, 1 project a month, or none. And that would allow the commission then to follow up as to make sure the recommendations on code, which basically carry your signature and seal, are adhered to. Is that possible, Chief?
Yeah, I just have some, talk to the fire marshal and Chief Moody, and we'll put something down like plan review, and then we'll just keep track. I do know the fire marshal meets every Tuesday. He's at a meeting right now with the building department. So I'll just make sure that he has some type of, we'll put it under plan review, and then you guys will, the commission would know how many times that Drew spent time reviewing plans and sending recommendations over to the city.
Yeah, I think that's an important part of the job description, an important part of what a fire marshal does in a community. And those recommendations are then forwarded to the city's plan commission and the common council, and they're basically a reflection of what's existing code. Is that an accurate assessment?
Yes, it is.
What flexibility is there to deviate from code?
That's up to the authority having jurisdiction, which is ultimately the fire chief. If we're gonna alternate the code, you have to have an alternative plan. If you're gonna reduce one thing, you better do something else to make it safer, or you're not gonna get a letter from me recommendation of reducing the code. Something has, like, you can say sprinkler a building, you don't have to do this. It makes it safer, and I'm okay with that. And that that's up to the authority having jurisdiction. But other than that, the code's there for a reason. It's for the safety of the public, the citizens of Stevens Point, and the firemen. So we stick to the code pretty much.
And I think it's a very important aspect of what's taking place at fire headquarters, and I think it's important we start sharing that information with the police and fire commission on a monthly basis. So I'll look forward to that, okay?
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome. Are there other questions on the fire and EMS report?
Bob, this would be just a question in regards to the entire idea of the fire department. Presently, there's 2 rather large structures going up in Point, and in the last few years, we've added several multi-layer buildings in the community. Are we looking ahead? Is our equipment, the amount of firefighting equipment we have, sufficient the way the new style of growth is happening in this town?
Yes, all our fire equipment's able, our tower ladder, especially our tower ladder, can get to the top floor of almost any building, if parked right at any building in the city is my contention. The ladder, being a 75-foot stick, cannot reach everything because it's 75 foot, not 100, but it can reach most places.
How about the amount of equipment, the number of units that we have?
We have enough number of units responding with Metro. What we do though is need more manpower on them units.
Okay. Is there a height limit in the city that a building can go because of the fire fighting equipment?
I don't know the answer to that question. I don't think so.
Because I know when the university building was being built, I think it went to 8 floors. I was told at the time that was as high as you could go in the Stevens Point because of firefighting equipment.
I'm going to guess that there is no such rule, Robert.
Okay.
And maybe the easy way to do that is, Chief Finn, when our aerial is downtown, will it reach to the top of the First Financial Building, for example?
I can tell you firsthand that a 100-foot aerial will reach to the 7th floor.
All right. Okay.
A 7th floor of a high-rise building at floor level.
Yeah,
Anything much higher than 7th floor, you're really pushing it. So we can get to our 100-foot aerial, and that's, most aerials are 100 feet. They are building 130 feet now, and it's a lot more money, and I'm not sure that you needed all that expense for an extra 35 feet. But
It's worth checking, but I'm going to guess, Robert, at least based on my time down there, Jerry, put on your former alderman hat. I'm not aware of any rule that existed, at least during our time. Jerry, can you think of any?
Yeah, I can't think of any strict rule. I think there was an agreement or kind of a nod by the city saying that it would be silly to go above whatever, but I don't remember a hard and fast rule.
Yeah,
I had always heard the rule of 7 floors is what I had heard.
yeah, I don't know. We can check.
well, I'm
Are there
gonna
other
go out on a limb here and say that building's gonna be required to be sprinkled.
Yeah, that's my guess.
Okay, so
Thank you.
Are there questions on the fire chief's report? All right, I'll move approval of the fire chief's report, EMS with the modifications we're looking for from the fire marshal in the future. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All right, let's back up since we have special counsel who has joined us. Dean, if you're still there, hopefully we didn't put you to sleep quite yet.
No, I'm right. I'm here. I'm good.
Okay. Let's back up, colleagues, to item 10, discussion, scheduling a hearing involving charges against a firefighter taking place. Again, I'm going to turn this over to special counsel in a second, but I want to stress we are not going to discuss the individual's name or any specific issues regarding the agenda item here today. So, Dean, maybe I'll just turn it over to you without saying any more here.
Yes, thank you. There are two things that I want to bring to the attention and ask for guidance on. Maybe just one that I need guidance on. First of all, the materials relate to the filing of charges against a firefighter seeking removal of the firefighter from employment with the department. That requires a hearing before the commission, and that hearing, by operation of state law, must be held in open session. That's why this conversation as well is being held in open session. And during the pendency of a proceeding for removal of a firefighter, the firefighter is required by state statute to continue to receive pay during the process. The hearing can't be held sooner than 10 days after the charges are filed, or longer than 30 days after the charges are filed, unless by agreement of the parties. And as you recall, we have a discipline matter pending that we have agreed not to proceed with hearing until the travel restrictions were lessened. That's not an opportunity for us right now as it relates to the bringing of charges for removal. Although I was hoping to talk to both attorneys before this meeting, and unfortunately that didn't work. So I wanted, first of all, for you to understand that's where that's at. This is what this case is. It is a proceeding. It is a proceeding involving charges for removal. Number two, and this is where I need some reaction from the commission. Typically, when you're dealing with a discharge hearing, that would be a live hearing, and it could very well be a couple of days of a live hearing. And obviously, the COVID situation is not conducive to that. Although, in theory, things have opened up more with masks and 6-foot distancing. We could go forward with a live hearing based upon some scheduling with the various attorneys. And I wanted to get some feedback from the commission on a live hearing and your thoughts and reactions to that. And I'll stop there for a minute and answer questions or hear any feedback.
Let me start. Tell us a little bit more. Some commissioners have been through this formal hearing process and are familiar with basically the setup nomenclature as to what it looks like. Other commissioners have not, Counselor. You have a situation where you have 5 commissioners present. We would have to work on appropriate distancing. There would have to be arrangements for special counsel and your ability to provide direction and guidance to the commission during the hearing. And then I think maybe, and if you disagree, please say so, the easiest way to look at this is maybe a quasi-courtroom. You have areas that are set up for the city attorney, who I believe in this matter would be presenting with the fire chief at one table and the firefighter and his legal counsel at another. And then the area would also, this would be captured for video, and there would be a public area too where they could view like a courtroom. Is that kind of a real?
That's true. That's accurate.
Okay.
That the room that you generally meet in, I think actually would work. It's just going to have to be set up a little differently and things kind of spread out a little more. We would also want to talk about what degree of microphone capabilities there are when you deal with masks. It gets a little harder to hear people, so talking into a microphone would also help in that process. There would be there'd be a witness stand and testimony given by witnesses who would be masked as well. Now, there is an exception under the mask order for someone who is making a presentation, either an educational presentation or something like that. I'll review that language again, but I think that we look more to the example of what the courts are doing, and the courts are requiring masks at this point. And by the way, you could see if there's a courtroom available, and you could potentially do it in a courtroom as well.
My 2 cents, are you looking from people?
Yeah.
Okay. My 2 cents, the last one I was involved with at the police department was held in the circuit courtroom. I think it's very doable to do it in the courtroom. I think with proper precautions because of COVID, I think it can be accomplished. And I personally would say we should learn from our past incident. I would like to see this not only for the firefighter, but for the community, for the fire department, to be done as soon as possible and as things allow it to be done.
Okay.
Well, and of course, let's always remember, as I know Commissioner Carlson, these are really, I understand your point, I get it. We weren't dealing with a formal termination hearing with the previous matter. This is a formal termination hearing, which is very clear guidance under state law, which Dean has laid out for us. I don't need to repeat it, the timelines that are involved. And of course, the matter, of course, as Council has mentioned, is the employee in question is on paid administrative leave, but we would not want that to continue for, well, it can't. The law is very clear. The hearing has to be held. Is there any possibility for part of the hearing or any of the hearing to be done telephonically?
Probably not,
Okay.
only because, you potentially could have motions, so to speak, prior to a hearing, that you could do telephonically. We could certainly do, we are doing hearings by Zoom. That's not the most effective way of doing business, and it's done more with mediations than it is with court proceedings, but they are being done. But I think there's very limited amounts of this that would be done telephonically.
All right. Are there other questions? I have some more, but I don't want to monopolize this. Commissioner Kirschling, Moore, Ostrowski. I'll pause. I have more questions, but let's go to my colleagues here. Joe?
Yeah, I'll yield to the other commissioners at this time.
Commissioner Moore?
My personal feeling is I think we should do as much of this face-to-face as we possibly can.
Yeah, I think that's going to be required. Commissioner Ostrowski?
I say, the fastest way to get something done is to meet as soon as possible and in person, and wherever we can safely do it. I myself would be willing to go anywhere you guys request.
Okay.
All right, let me ask just a couple of more questions so we catch all the touch points that possibly exist out there, Counselor. Is there any requirement that the hearing be held indoors?
No, there is no requirement for that.
Okay, well, I don't know that I'm serious, so I just want to make sure we've kind of checked all the boxes here. An idea that I've had as I've thought about this is we know from all medical and scientific research that the more fresh air you can introduce into an area, airflow, the better. That's how they're structuring the schools, the return to the university, our public schools. Is there any, what would the possibility be that we have this? We've had commission meetings in the at fire headquarters in the truck bay. We move all the trucks out, open all the doors. Any thoughts on that?
It could be done. My other reaction is that seems to kind of be a little bit closer to a circus atmosphere, and that would not be something that I would like to see happen.
Right.
I just the reaction.
Yeah, I just want to, go ahead, Ron, go ahead.
Question for Chief Denner, if he's still there. Is normal court proceedings going on right now, Tom?
Yes.
Okay.
My point.
Go ahead, whoever's trying there.
All right, this is more. My concern would be that we would set it up somewhere that would be the easiest we can for the video and for microphone setup. That would be as important as the rest of it because of their moving all their equipment around and all that kind of stuff gets to be a real hassle.
Well, off the top of my head, and I've given this a little thought on and off since it popped up, is if someone were to get a measuring tape out and start basically figuring with the room that Chief Zenner, Chief Fenn, and Leanne are sitting in right now, would that, with some remodeling or reconfiguring of the tables and chairs, because it's currently mic'd, wired. You have, I don't know if any of the presenting parties are going to need video or audio visual, but that room is wired for all of that. I think on the face of it, if we can properly spread everybody out, sanitize the building, that might be the most logical approach. Colleagues, what do you think?
Gary, I have a couple of thoughts on what the commissioners have said. Number one, with being in the room that we are currently, currently doing the meetings This is going to be a public meeting, and if 100 people show up, we're not going to be able to socially distance. I think that needs to be kept in mind. Number two, I would support, as much of a pain as it is, I completely support having some sort of an open air or some sort of a modified setting. Again, I acknowledge that it's a pain from an audio standpoint. I acknowledge that it's a pain just from a setup standpoint. Having said this, this is odd times that we're in, and we need to take measures to ensure everybody's safety, not only our safety, but the people that will be joining this open meeting as well.
Joe, I couldn't agree with you more, and I think all of us benefit. I know your family, mine, and others. I have many medical professionals in the Westcott family, and I'm hearing the same thing, that right now it's got to be top of the mind safety, that this virus is very, very virulent, and it is resisting a number of things, and we need to be mindful of that. Counselor, let me back way up. I don't know that we're going to pick the room this morning here.
No, we're not. You're giving me feedback, and that's what I want.
Yeah, let me back up. You were going to have a conversation, and you shared with the commission that the conversation did not take place. Are you at liberty in an open session to discuss what you want to talk to these attorneys about, logistics or what?
No, it's strictly to talk to both of them about logistics.
All right.
And I would leave it at that.
President Westcott,
Yes, sir, go ahead.
this is Chief Zenner. Just to let you know, whether you know, there's an overflow room that is adjacent to the room that we're sitting in now. That has a capacity up to 49. Obviously, that's not with social distancing, but it does expand the size, and that is wired with a monitor.
I think what I would like are some options that Chief Center, if you were, and you've got other things to do, I mean, whoever you want, do some rough configuring as to all the commissioners need to be a minimum of 6, if not more, apart. You're going to have a spot for legal counsel. Dean would likely need to be at the same table or in the area the commission is. You got the idea from our earlier discussion, and then set up the room properly, socially distancing all the chairs for spectators back, and give us an idea as I'm very sensitive to, even if Joseph said, 50, 60 people show up for this, you're still moving a lot of people through a very narrow hallway, and there's things we need to think through here.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I could probably talk to Chief Zinner a little more about that as well.
Yeah, and I don't know that I would necessarily rule out. I hear you, Jerry, on CA3, but we had talked to the folks at the city communication about going back to hosting some meetings at fire headquarters. And I had specifically asked them some time ago how big of a problem would that be, and I was assured they can easily move the camera and equipment over there, that it wouldn't be that big of a problem. So we can revisit that too.
Sarah agrees with that.
Is there any school buildings or other buildings available that would be better suited for this?
My experience thus far has been that school buildings are not now being offered for civic and community events.
For the same
like
reason
they have been in the past, yeah.
And for the same reason they don't want all these people from the public coming in.
Yeah, and I get that. What about the rec building? I'm just thinking of places with large rooms.
Oh, the gymnasium at the rec department, that's a... let's do this. Counselor needs to talk to the attorneys involved. I want all of you to continue to give this some thought, provide some feedback. Why don't you just send it all to Leanne, let her kind of be the collector and the collator of options. That would give Leanne the opportunity to also talk with Sarah or John as far as capabilities. Because as Dean mentioned, these are public meetings. Is there any option for this to be closed? No, they have to be open by law, right?
Right, there is no option for it being closed.
Right. Why don't we ship our ideas to Leanne, and I think it's appropriate to copy me. I don't think we've got a walking quorum if I don't respond. You okay with that, Counselor?
Yeah.
Okay. And why don't we see where this goes? If we give you
You've given me enough direction to at least digest this, and I think I'll have a conversation with the chief regarding options that exist at various city buildings. I know we've done things out at the golf course, Century World too was an option, so I don't know that they'd want us there, but.
Yeah. Well, let's all continue to brainstorm on that, because all right. If we could, then Dean, we're gonna pause with you for a moment and just return. We've got just a couple more items on the open agenda, then we'll come back to you for the executive. Okay, sir?
Yeah, that's fine, because we'll have to adjourn into closed session.
Right. Let's go to the police chief's report. I'm going to come back to number 12. Members of the commission, you have reports from Tom Zinner for the month of July and also a reflection for the month of June. The one observation, Tom, that I want you to comment on, and I applaud you, is the monthly use of force reporting. Is again the department working with the commission and the community offers greater transparency into the operations of police functions in the community. I think that's a good step. What would you add in that area, sir?
Thank you. Yes, we included in both June and July a new paragraph. I got some feedback from the commissioners. Thank you for that. And the end result is what you see. In June, we had a number of use of force incidents, were 3 and 1 in the month of July. And doing a quick review of all of those, they all basically are linked to a traffic related. We had a couple high-speed pursuits, which has increased in recent times, and a couple high-risk stops. And those use of force, I will be including, I didn't get it in this, but we do have a form that is each officer, whenever there's a use of force, they need to complete, and it has various check marks within it for data that we collect. And simply in these cases, pointing or removing a handgun from their holster, that's a use of force. And there's multiple use of force that would be associated with a high-risk stop, to include spike strips, pursuit intervention tactics, and in the case of removing a handgun, pointing it in the direction of an individual, that is a high-risk stop, or excuse me, a use of force.
All right, are there questions for Chief Center on the reports for June and July?
I did have a couple things I wanted to add really quick. And I sent that out. We did have a recent resignation that we will be going through that process. And we actually have an interview today. And also, as you know, I like to take every opportunity to talk about our outstanding staff. I'd also like to take an opportunity to identify an intern that we have at our police department, Brianna Vaughn. She's an intern from UW-Platteville, and she did an absolutely outstanding recruitment video. I do have Lieutenant Mueller that made a copy of that on a thumb drive, and he will be bringing it to your residents today for view. What our plan is by the end of the week to get that put on our website and our Facebook page. But I want, obviously, the members of the Police and Fire Commission to observe that before that goes out.
Very good. Thank you to our intern from Platteville.
Good question to Chief Center.
Yes.
Absolutely. Go ahead, Ron.
Tom, I'm looking to give you some more work here after reviewing and looking at these every month and all that. And I've told you this, I've liked what you've done with it. Can we add one more thing? I'm curious with meth and heroin and everything else out there. Can we have a subtopic of drug activity, drug arrests, drug investigations, stuff like that? So not only are we aware, but the public can be aware too what's going on drug-wise?
Absolutely. I know we had that in there before, and basically whenever I have something that's associated with that, I put it under a note of interest, but I will pull that back out and have it as its individual. We have seen an uptick in methamphetamine involved cases. We did have an overdose with heroin again in the last month, so that has been moving up. Whether we can associate that with the current events, I can draw some parallels, but we have seen an increase in drug-related activity and mental health.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, Ron, I think that's a great ad. Thank you. That's a real good recommendation.
Tom, I got a couple comments for you.
Sure.
One is, yes, thank you for your use of force. When I first got on the commission years ago, we used to get a brief thing like that, and then it disappeared, and I really enjoyed learning. So I feel like I know what's going on in a community and better. Second of all, my question is I noticed under staffing, several people have moved up to interim ranking. Does that change their pay? And what happens when a new chief is chosen? Do they return to their old rank, or what happens?
Yes, thank you for bringing that up. We did have, just based on the time frame until a new chief is hired, we did make some moves. Lieutenant Robert Cousseau is the interim assistant chief, and he is actually filling my old role as operations chief. We have Brian Brooks, who was a sergeant in the Investigations Bureau. He has moved up to the interim lieutenant. And Mike Schultz, who's a senior officer and a senior detective, is going to fill that role as sergeant. At the time when a new chief is hired, they will all go back to their original spots. At this time, though, they are all being compensated for the positions that they temporarily hold. Add on top of that, and I think that I missed getting that into the packet, interim chief, assistant chief Robert Cousseau was moved up to a step 5, and that has passed through the recent council.
Okay. And then one other comment is I want to thank you for putting us in line to take that implicit bias video. I found it extremely interesting, and I thank you for the opportunity to take that video.
Absolutely, and that is Lieutenant Jeremy Mueller, who has coordinated that and has been researching the training. It was an excellent training. I had conversations with him, and we thought it's a great opportunity to at least give the PFC an opportunity to view it. And we have that for a month. I believe it's run out now. All right, we got a couple weeks left, I guess.
I was told you had until the 13th.
Yep, he actually has just given me the nod.
I will say it helped me not only as a commissioner, it helped me personally, so thank you.
Thank you.
Are there other questions for Chief Center? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve the reports from June and July and place them on file, please.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Kirschling, second.
Second by Commissioner Kirschling. All in favor, please say aye. 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 Opposed, say no. Motion carries. Okay, on the review, item 12 of the police chief's job description and possible timeline for hiring, I'm going to defer most of that. I do have a couple of things. Those of you who remember Alderman Rackow, he loved to say at meetings he was chairing, I have some homework assignments. Remember that, Jerry?
Yeah, yep.
We have, Leanne has distributed to the commission basically what I would consider to be a community profile for police chief and the position description. Leanne, can you tell me, I have looked at the position description that you sent, by the way, thank you for doing that. Unless I missed it, I can't really tell the last time this position description was reviewed and updated. Do you know off the top of your head?
It was June 16th of 2015.
Right on the last page, Gary. Page 4, revised June 16th.
Oh, now I see why I didn't see it. Could we make that font any smaller?
I could, yes. Absolutely.
All right, so, good grief. Thank you, Ron, and I applaud your eyesight. Now that you pointed out to me. All right, this thing is over 5 years old. If I could ask all of my colleagues to spend some time and take a look at it. And Chief Center, that's going to include you, Leanne, the assistant chiefs, and whomever else you want to include, Tom. I want us to I want us to thoroughly go through all of these sections and make sure that this is still applicable, that the distinguishing features, the essential duties and responsibilities. Generally, when you have a position description this old, it needs updating. Most of the time, position descriptions are updated, as my colleagues know, when you have turnover and it's time to bring in new leadership. But let's take a look at all of the key points on page 2. Chief Center, you and your team and Leanne can play a very important role. Leanne, I'm going to ask that you involve the city attorney. I want to make sure that from a legal point of view, the 4 pages of language here are still consistent with areas of labor law that the city attorney would be comfortable with or in compliance with. And I have no reason to believe none of this isn't. I just want to put some fresh eyes on it after 5 years. Also, on the city of Stevens Point seeking an innovative leader, if commissioners, again, would take some time with that. Clearly, there are a number of areas in there that need updating in this, and get those changes to Leanne. The population immediately shows up. The student population is no longer 9,000 at the university. So let's update that, and either for a special meeting or at September, have those updated documents. And Bob, I would, Chief Finn, if you wish to take a look at any of this and provide input from a fire perspective, because I can't think of 2 employees who work closer together than our fire chief and police chief, and there may be aspects to these documents that at least you have an idea. So I know you've got a lot on your plate right now, Robert, but if you take the time to do that too. The other thing I want to share with the commission is Commissioner Carlson is currently serving as our commissioner at large. Robert's our secretary. Jerry is liaison to police. Joe is liaison to fire. I'm asked Commissioner Carlson to take the lead on organizing, collating, working with Leanne to kind of pull all of this together as I work on the myriad of other activities the commission is involved in. So with your concurrence, I'm going to appoint Ron as lead on our search and screen. Commissioner Carlson, what would you have to say for yourself, sir?
Just looking forward to it. It's another page in the history of Stevens Point here, and with everybody's work and cooperation, I think we can have a really good search and process in place. My only question, should we also include Lisa Yakush as the HR person for the city as well?
Well, absolutely, and she's actually on the list here to include, and thank you for pointing that out, Ron. I should have mentioned her, but she needs, and anybody else. I mean, if Chief Center or you, Ron, or Leanne, if somebody feels that I missed something here, I think we should probably, run it by the mayor. Let him take a look at it, because he's mentioned on a couple of aspects of it. see what he thinks. Let's get from Lisa. I guess wherever you want to have it reviewed. I mean, there might be an argument to have the comptroller's office take a look at it because you work quite closely on budget preparation and in a number of areas there. We also want to take a look at, and I know Ron's going to work on this, but in our last chief hiring process for both fire and for police, is we used a number of key citizen committees, basically working groups, key stakeholders from both the protective services area, key stakeholders from the city of Stevens Point. That was primarily department heads, people that the police chief works with, people in the protective services area, Clover chief of police, county sheriff, for example, is one key stakeholders group. We want to continue to organize that and, freshen up those lists. And we want, alderperson input too. Mary Kneebone serves as the liaison. Do this, we would want some stakeholder groups from the alderpersons to be involved. So this is kind of long-range planning, down the road to start pulling those thoughts together. Ron, what would you add to that?
I think
Ron, are we losing your connection here? I'm having trouble understanding you.
sounds like somebody's out. But no, I agree. We need to involve as many as we can, representatives of the community, to make a good decision.
All right. Well, Ron is going to kind of take the lead on that, so I don't really have any need for a formal motion. Are there further comments or discussion from the Police and Fire Commission under the review that I've asked for here?
Gary, so to be clear, Ron is going to be putting together groups and facilitating them. Is that right?
I don't know that he'll facilitate them. I want Ron to work with all of you for suggestions as to who could be a part of specific stakeholder groups. I'm basically asking Ron to kind of just take the lead on the search and screen, but to work with all members of the commission as far as if you've got ideas. I think, Joseph, we had representatives from the medical community last time. I mean, let's just begin the thinking process on this is where I'm going.
Okay.
I think the first thing that has to take place is we really need the position description updated. We need some of the language in this advertisement updated. And, the stakeholder groups and who's involved is down the road a little bit.
Yep, I agree.
All right. Are there other questions, comments? If not, I'm going to move to item 14, and I will move a motion to adjourn into closed session pursuant to Wisconsin State Statute, Section 1985-1 and G. Purpose of conferring with legal counsel who is rendering advice concerning strategy to be adopted by the Commission with respect to litigation it is likely to become involved in, including discussion regarding responses to public records requests. I will so move. Is there a second?
I will second that, Commissioner Ostrowski.
Commissioner Ostrowski with the second. Question or comment on the motion? Leanne, would you please call the roll for closed session?
Carlson?
Yes.
Pershling?
Yes.
Moore?
Yes.
Ostrowski?
Yes.
And Westcott?
Yes.
Videos of these meetings are available for viewing on the city's website, stevenspoint.com/videos.